Yeah, I'm dying to believe that we're more alike than we.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the shop. Last time we left off, we talked about the motor upgrades, and I mentioned in this video we'll be going through the wiring. So let's go ahead and give you a rundown. I've been working a little bit off camera because, frankly, it's a little bit faster than moving the camera around and setting up time lapses and whatnot. So anyways, hold on a second. So here is the wiring upgrades that we've done so far. Some of you may have remembered the electronics panel that I set in place in here. Would have been about the fall of 2023 time frame. So the first thing that I did was, before putting the headliner in, I put the same matte stuff that's on the floor, put it on the roof. And the idea was hopefully it'll help cut down on some of the heat that's in the car when we're sitting in the staging lanes, whatnot, and out in the sun. Slid the headliner back in place. Alex did a very, very good job installing the cage. And by that, I mean it was a little bit difficult. It took a little bit of work to get the headliner back in place. After that, put the switch panel up here from Raceworks Solutions. Okay, so back around on the other side of the car, you can see where we've got the switch panel here. And now the reason that I did that, put it on this side, was from here. We got steering column here, and the shutoff, the emergency stop, is basically in line with that, which means that I can hit it very easily with either hand. Once the switch panel's in place, came time to mount the leash board. As you can see, it is now on the electronics panel, and by doing that, all I really had to do was drill out one rivet that was right behind the leash, where the leash board is now, and then install 2 riv nuts. I'd gone back and forth between putting it there, or on the bar, or on the dash itself, somewhere here, and then how do I make it serviceable so that I can still remove the dash easily to get to this board, so on and so forth. Debated a lot. Came out to, in my head, to be easiest just to put it there, mounting it here. If I'd put a clamp and a panel above the bar, wouldn't be able to put dash pad on. The dash sits close enough to here where it's gonna hit, the leash board would hit here if it put it flush mounted on the front side. Maybe could have done it on the back side, but it would have been pretty tight. Anyways, putting it on the dashboard itself would have relied on something like 3 DTM or DTM, DTP, DT, whatever, the Deutsch connectors, the ones that'll take like 13 amps, as all of those inputs and outputs are rated at 10 amps, except for the 2 relays, which are rated to 30. So those would have required like 3 of those connectors in order to get them to work. I don't want to do weather packs as they are massive. That made out to be the easiest. So once that was mounted, went ahead and ran some of these. The wires for the switch panel are there. It will all be loomed eventually, just not today. Started running those inputs, and then came the fairly overwhelming task of dealing with what was left of the factory wiring. It was a matter of identifying, based on the shape of the connector, either the plugs that I knew that I wanted to keep. Mostly would have been turn signals, headlights, wipers, etc. Referencing the factory wiring diagrams to identify the colors of the wires and all that stuff. And what we ended up with here was the convenience center, the fuse panel, and a whole bunch of wires. Once that was all out, I ran further some more wires that were long enough to connect to the leash board. It really comes out to the horn and the radio was about all that was left that could reach. This down here is what did not reach. Now we enter into a little box that I got from my friends here over at Wiring Depot, and they sell this wire. This is 14 gauge, they have other sizes as well, in pre-made 15-foot lengths. Because if I used what I had on hand, I have 10 gauge, 12 gauge, and 14 gauge in red and black. I've got that. That'll work for what's left of connecting what's left of the factory wiring to the leash panel and the switch panel. As a part of that rewire, what I'm doing is I'm swapping all of the light bulbs in the car over to LED. The leash board itself will run every bulb that you can possibly want, whether it's headlights, turn signals, brake lights, etc. This car has a bunch of marker lights that need to get replaced. I'll make a special video just for that, and then leave links to all of the bulbs that I got from Super Bright LEDs, I think it's a company. Anyways, the next video will be about swapping that out. It'll probably end up being pretty short. And since this car does not have half of the bulbs, it won't be a complete guide if your car still has factory, like dash cluster, all the factory interior lights. From the factory, there's a couple lights that go down into the kick panels that light up, a whole bunch of them that are up here in the gauge cluster. The only interior light that I'm keeping is the dome light, and that is on a switch panel. So it won't be a complete guide, but you'll get a pretty good idea. Okay guys, so it's been a couple of days. I've got all of the wiring for the lights wired up to the leash board. Let me go ahead and show you the progress and run through everything that I did. Okay, so the switch panel here is wired up. The cutoff switch in the back is on. The key is on, and the kill switch is on. So, next step is turn the ignition on, which powers on all of the 12, or the switched ignition ports on there. It also lights up the parking lights. The way that you wire up your leash board may depend, but when I set up the switch panel, I did not account the hazard lights or the parking lights. So that's the first one. Demonstrate. We've got, you can see it glowing off the front of the truck. For left turn, right turns are on back here. We get the right turn on there, and as well for this. Now, if you are familiar with these cars from the factory, these are supposed to alternate. What I ended up having to do was to separate the side marker light from the front turn signal light. This one now grounds to the body, and then this one is using the dual filament. Is it possible to set it up from the factory with the alternating lights, or the factory wiring on the leash board? Perhaps, I'm not sure. I couldn't get it to work, so that's what I did in order to make my turn signals work with the marker lights, and etc. Next one, on the switch panel, I've got low beams. This is a double pole, double throw, I think you call it switch, but up is low beams, middle is off, and down is high beams. So, headlights on, and the low beams are on. Next up, same switch, turns the high beams on, and all four headlights are on with the high beams. The indicators will still work on the dash. Next up, we've got the dome light. That one was super simple to wire up. And then finally, the brake lights. You press on the brake pedal just like factory, and it goes over there. So now the lights are taken care of. The next step is to wire up like the neutral safety, the reverse lights. Inside the car, reconfigure the wiring for the boost control. Previously, I had that on a virtual switch on the Pro Dash running to the solid state relay. What I'm changing that to is it's now going to be on the toggle switch, and it will give power to the MAC valves and to the helmet blower that's going to be in the back. The reason for adding the helmet blower and configuring it that way is twofold. One is driver comfort. I think we've all been in staging lanes for a while. We've got the helmet on, we're getting hot, so on and so forth. So one, it's driver comfort, but two, wiring it up to the boost controller, or the same switch on the boost controller, however you want to call it, is that it will give a positive feedback, and you can never forget to turn on the boost control when you're going to make a pass, or when you intend to. So that's the reason why I decided to go that route. The next phase after that is done is to wire up the Rife dual and triple sensor blocks. If you are unfamiliar with these are a solid, very clean wiring, great install for wiring up sensors remotely. Does a couple of things, but it shares a harness for all the sensors that are in that block. They will all share the power and signal ground, and you'll run those to the ECU. The other thing that it does is you can have up to 4 sensors. Now, in the dual blocks, you will get 2 pressure and 2 temp sensors. In the triple blocks, like that one, you'll have 3 pressure, 1 temperature. And then the other one, quad block, would be 4 pressure. What that's gonna do is previously right here, I had a vacuum block that had the map sensor in it. Over here, I had 2 single sensor blocks, one for oil pressure and one for crankcase pressure. Now, all 3 of them will be mounted in this, and you can read the labels on the sensor block itself. That will be mounted right there between the trans dipstick and the wiper motor. So now we have one 6-wire harness going to this, and we'll have another one mounted somewhere up here that will have dome pressure, back pressure, fuel pressure, and coolant pressure. Once the sensor blocks are added, the final step to complete all of the wiring is going to be to re-lume everything. Some of the lume I was able to save, some of it is going to get trashed and replaced. It's not the end of the world, it's just how these projects go. So, continuing on with the rewire. Let's go over real quick some tools that I found to be helpful in this. Number 1 is going to be a power probe. Extremely useful when you're troubleshooting. I can send ground, I can send power. It also has a readout here that tells me the voltage applied real quick. Don't need to break the bank, especially if you're not a full-time tech. This cost me like 14 bucks on Amazon. The next one, as always, anytime you're doing any electrical work, is going to be a good quality multimeter. Again, this is nothing super expensive. I think I got this at AutoZone like 8-10 years ago, something like that. After that, same as always, we need a good cutters, strippers, and crimpers. The other thing that I found extremely helpful is both digital copies of the factory wiring diagrams, and then also to take notes on absolutely everything that you're doing. I'll put an actual screenshot in here. But keeping track of what is going where is invaluable when it comes to doing this. If you think that you're going to rewire a car, part-time, a couple hours, maybe an hour or 2 a night over the course of this is now going on 2 weeks long, and you think you're going to remember where every single wire goes, you are out of your mind. So anyways, that's the little update in the tools that I thought were helpful. I'm sure there's more that I'll remember in a little bit. This is a little bit more involved of a project. If you cannot read a wiring diagram, this is probably not a task that you want to be undertaking for yourself. All right, guys, got all the lights done. The next step in the wiring is to replace the shifter because the neutral safety switch and the reverse lights are tied to that. Again, welcome to work. And we're going to open up this box, and we're going to open up here and reveal an operator shifter 400 reverse pattern rear exit. So what that means is you will shift forward to shift up. Park's gonna be closest to the driver, third gear is gonna be furthest from the driver. These are available in a bunch of different configurations, both with CO2 and without. For the 3 and 4 speed shifters, the 2 speed shifters, there's an optional electric assist as well, only for the 2 speeds though. And what I mean by the wiring on the shifter, the purple and the black wires here. Inside the body of the shifter, there are 2 micro switches, the black and the purple, reverse lights, and your neutral safety. I got mine obviously with the CO2 air ram assist and an optional MAC valve and the MAC valve mounting bracket. But let's go ahead and get that installed here. For the wiring on the shifter, not too bad. It is 4 wires total for the basic shifter, an additional 2 for the MAC valve. I used DTM 6-pin connector plug, and I only terminated 4 on the other side. So on here, purple are your neutral safety wires. They're active in park and neutral, and then the black pair are going to be your reverse lights. Now, on mine, my reverse lights are activated by the trans brake solenoid, so I'm not going to be using these 2. However, I recycled MAC valve from a former project on the car, and then I have that wired to the same relay the boost controller's on, and then the other wire, this one, is going to ground through the Holly. Okay, now for this neutral safety wiring. Real quick, here is my starter solenoid relay. Got battery power distribution block. It runs over to fuse panel, 30 amp fuse. Goes down to this relay pin 30. I'm going to drop a wiring diagram in here. also. Pin 30 to this relay. Pin 87 goes from this relay out to the starter solenoid. On my switch panel, my starter switch is a momentary button. That one is wired down to pin 85 of this standard Bosch relay. Pin 86 is wired to one of the two pairs of purple wires on here. Again, the purple wires are your neutral safety. The other purple wire is run back up here and goes to a chassis ground here that is shared with a bunch of other stuff. Now that we've taken care of the shifter wiring, the next step on this was to wire up the Rife sensor blocks. I'll do a whole video on switching over all of my sensors from another company over to the Rife sensors. Anyways, this is really simple. Here's one. It is a quad block. It holds 4 pressure sensors. Back behind the intake manifold is a triple block. It holds 3 pressure sensors, and it has, over on the side, you can see it right there, kind of little black knob. That is an M5 connector, and you can wire in one of a few different types of sensors, but most commonly would be a temperature sensor. Anyways, pulled back the harness, fished out for both the the sensors that were wired to the Pro Dash and to the ECU. Pulled out all of those wires, removed all of the unnecessary power and ground. So the Rife quad blocks have a 6-wire harness. All 4 sensors are going to share the 5-volt power and sensor ground. Once I did that, like I said, pulled out those wires from the harness, ran them all the way back to the ECU and to the dash, and now that we're only running 2 of each. 2 5-volt references, 2 sensor grounds, 1 for each of the sensor blocks. After that, it was just a matter of matching up the signal wires for each sensor into both the ECU and to the Pro Dash. Once we got that done, as you can see, went ahead and re-loomed using that same split loom stuff that I've used in the past. Re-loomed the entire harness on the engine bay side and on the interior side. You can see it right here. Everything was redone. Now, at this point, all of the wiring is done. The only thing that we did not do today is that loop, that coiled up loop, is for the wipers, and then the switch panel has a ground wire that I'm not using, and an accessory, a second accessory switch that I'm also not using. Those are coiled up there and labeled. And then lastly, I'm still waiting on my TIC wiring deal. You all saw it at PRI, the endless spinning deal. That hasn't come in yet, so those wires are just run up to the column, just like you see there. Other than that, everything else is done. That little bit is the 2 USBs for the Pro Dash, the USB for the Terminator X, the dongle, and the handheld screen. Okay guys, that's gonna wrap it up for this one. It was a bit of an involved project. It took me about 2 months to get all this done, but it does feel nice to, here, I'll show you. This is everything that I cut out of the car. 2 5-gallon buckets of the original fuse block, convenience center, whatever they call it, the hazard module, a ton of wiring, a ton of just garbage. The electrical is a lot, the electrical has been cleaned up quite a bit. Anyways, it did take me, like I said, about 2 months to get this project finished. A lot of that was spent doing maybe an hour or 2 after work most nights. There was a couple nights where I wasn't able to. There's a couple weekends where I was able to put quite a few hours in. There was other weekends where I had to go out of town and do other things. If you stuck around this long, thanks for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing. You don't have to, I'm not your dad. Check out the store. There's shirts, there's stickers, there's calendars, etc., etc. If you stuck around this long, thanks for watching. Please consider liking, subscribing, etc. It means a great deal to me. Before you go, there's a video that's going to be popping up here in the corners I think you might enjoy. Thanks. Check them out. Take care. Have a nice night.